From the team that brought you the Haunted Files on ParaFlixx comes a new way to experience the unknown. This is the Haunted Files Unplugged, where the lights are low, the stories are raw, and the truth is stranger than fiction. Join Mike Delcoro, Eric Vanderlaan, and their special guests as they dive into the dark corners of the paranormal. From hauntings and cryptids to UFO encounters and everything in between. No filters, no scripts, just pure, unfiltered conversation from the world beyond. You're listening to the Haunted Files Unplugged.
Holy motherfucker!
Happy Monday, everybody.
Yes.
Oh, wait a second. We don't have Mike here. So I'm your host, Eric Vanderlaan of the Haunted Files Unplugged radio show. And unfortunately, Mike can't make it. He's under the weather. But I got the next best thing. I got Bill Slevin with me. Thank you, Bill, for coming on last minute.
Yeah, thanks for asking.
So the reason why I asked you is because of our special guest. You guys are pretty good friends. So we got a amazing show. We got a special guest. We got David Sloan from Key West. People know him with his other friend, Robert the Doll. Am I right?
Yeah, I've known David and Robert for a long time.
All right. So I got a little intro, Bill. You want to see it?
Sure.
Here we go. Bam. All right. Without further ado, the man of the hour. Bam.
Hey. I love that intro.
Thank you, sir. And thanks for coming on the show and being our guest.
Yeah, it's always great hanging out with both of you.
Yeah. Good seeing you.
So there's a lot of crazy things going down there in Key West. You know, a lot of people always ask me so what do you think is the most haunted location in the US, like some of them? And I'm saying it's got to be Key West, Gaia Wesso, Island of the Bones. Like, what? It doesn't make it any more haunted than that, right?
Yeah, I mean, Key West has so much of it. And the Island of Bones, it was scattered with the bones of the Native Americans. And so when it was first discovered, they were all over. They were up in trees and they were scattered across the beaches. And then the interesting thing for me, a lot of places that are along the trade routes, a lot of the old seaports have a lot of hauntings, but with Key West, the dead never rest. It seems like any cemetery we've had, it gets uprooted by storms, or the churchyards, they decide to build a bigger church and dig everybody up or bury them underneath. So even in the cemetery, it's limited space. So the bones will be pushed to the side once they've decomposed. And then the next generation of that family will share the same grave. So there's really no resting in peace when you're in Key West. And I think that helps to make so many of them very active.
It's one of those cities, I think, that you feel the energy around that city.
Yeah.
Especially you go into that cemetery. I love that cemetery. And you could see half of those things are cracked and broken. And, when you walk around that cemetery, there's a lot going on in it.
Yeah, it shows the stage. And it's interesting because the whole island used to be a coral reef. So
Mm.
we're an ancient coral reef. We really are out in the middle of the ocean, and that coral reef it became exposed and and submerged several times, and then with the weathering. But I think that has something to do with it. We're on that big limestone foundation, and
Yeah.
and billions of skeletons of the of the polyps from the coral reef. So
And
Yeah.
plus, you can't dig under there. You dig, you hit water. I mean,
yeah.
you're like some places like are probably below sea level, right? And
Yeah, it's all very close to sea level. Our highest elevation, you might be 18 feet above sea level, but the coral is very tough to dig into.
Yeah.
and why was that the place where they buried their dead, the Native Americans? It seemed like that would be like the worst place to do it, just because they just pile up, right?
There's different theories about it. The most common one, people will say that there was one tribe that, a lot of times they say the Calusa, and they were chased by the Seminole, and they didn't want to be violent, so they kept hopping key to key. And then when they got to Key West, the closest place was Cuba, so they made their last stand, and it was this big battle, and these bodies were the remnants of that. I had a friend though who put forth a theory that I'd never heard. We
Uh-huh.
know that this used to be seasonal camping grounds, at least, hunting and camping for the different tribes of South Florida. She
Right.
said it's likely that a hurricane snuck up on them, one they weren't expecting, and they didn't
Hmm.
have anywhere to go. Because you think about it, a hurricane would have taken their lives, washed them out to sea, and then with its spinning motion, washed them right back onto the shore, and that would
True.
explain the bodies up in trees, the bodies scattered across the beach. So I think it might have been Mother Nature that delivered all those bones here, and with that such a traumatic death like that. And it's very interesting because whenever there's storms approaching, you can feel the energy of the island change.
Hmm.
I'm sure. I wouldn't want to be down there in one of those storms.
Yeah.
I'm happy I'm a little more north.
Even when we get thunderstorms, you can feel it. Out at 40 Smartella with Robert the Doll, if we get a storm rolling in, I'm like, oh, it's going to be an active night. And it's the
Well, yeah,
same
the
way at
change
America's Most Haunted Firehouse.
the changes in the atmosphere makes a
Mm,
huge difference, because my most active night was at the Gold Coast Railroad Museum, and we had like a tropical disturbance. It wasn't a tropical storm, it wasn't a hurricane. It was, but enough to where there were feeder bands coming in. And like at some point, like the wind was going sideways in the rain, like inside the hangar, and like, man, we were getting disembodied voices, we were getting shadow figures. And I think like changes like that, like in the humidity and barometric pressure, I think that makes a huge difference to stir up activity.
And you've got one of Flagler's railroad cars, I believe, that the last engine that went to Key West, right?
I
Uh,
believe so. And they got some rail cars there as well that used to travel down there.
so because I think one of the ones that went and rescued people, the veterans that were in the middle of the Keys right before there was a big accident. I think that one might be there. So if there's activity during the storms around that would make a lot of sense.
mm.
Yeah. Well,
The
it's an amazing
storms.
place. I'm trying to drag you to get there.
I would
Bill's been there,
I
David.
tell
I've
you,
been there a couple times.
it's on my bucket list since you first told me about it. I'm like, oh my God, I have to investigate that place. I mean, it looks so incredible. Um, and the stories that I've heard from you.
On top of that, you got the presidential car, the Ferdinand Magellan. It's like a like time capsule, like Truman, Roosevelt, Reagan, Winston Churchill rode in that car, and that's like the most active car. Like you hear
Yeah.
footsteps and all kinds of things going on in there.
Do you get a lot of things around the property, like the exterior as well?
Yeah, because previously it was a naval base, and it
Yeah.
during World War II it was the largest naval air station in all of the U.S. And they had these airships, these blimps that would patrol the Florida coast for German U-boats. And they had 3 hangars that could fit 6 of these blimps. And in 1946, a hurricane came and lifted one of the roofs up, and one of the plinths caught on fire, and it was just like a chain reaction. All three hangars blew up, and
Whoa,
several people died there.
What
interesting. And that was later the CIA base as well. That was the JM Wave base. Nobody knew about it at the time, but when they were looking to take down Castro, they were running 15,000 operatives out of there.
oh, wow.
Oh, I never knew that. Very interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, you know, there's a secret base there now. It's definitely ran by the military, but nobody knows what it is. Like, even if like you go like on a satellite, it doesn't label the buildings. But when we're out there late at night and we got our IR lights and thermal cameras, like you see like the security guards like parked out on the other side of the fence, just like sitting there checking us out, saying, "What the fuck are these guys doing?"
Interesting. Oh, that's
And
very interesting. Yeah, I
and
wouldn't
then,
be surprised if the CIA still keeps something going there.
well, there's a rumor that they were testing monkeys there. That's what I heard. So
Well,
Oh,
I
that wouldn't
remember.
surprise me. They've done that in the Middle Keys as well, Raccoon Island or Raccoon
Mm.
Key. They had they had a lot of monkeys, and they kind of let them loose.
Right.
Yeah,
I
I had
remember.
friends who would drive by and they'd freak out and start throwing stuff at the boats. What were you saying, Bill?
No, I was gonna say I remember one night. I don't remember, Eric. I don't know if it was you or JP, or we were up there, and they were doing EVPs, and they captured what sounded like the engine starting. Do you remember that? It
oh
sounded like the
yeah,
engine started up on the recorder. It was one of the craziest sounds I've heard like that. It really sounded like the engine turned on.
I've gotten on the recorder like the brakes going on, like
Mm,
it's like slowing down, and also I've even felt like being in one of the cars, like you'll sit there and you'll like be like, "Oh my god, it feels like it's moving." Like you feel like the car is actually moving. It's the wildest
right.
thing.
Do you guys always use recorders when you do EVPs, or do you ever use your phone? Do you ever use the recorder on your phone?
I have so many recorders. I've never used the phone. I have people that use the phone. The reason I personally, I mean, I'll let you say what you're gonna say, Eric. But the the reason I don't like it is because on the phone, I tell people there's even though you're just using a basic recorder, it's not an app or like a crazy ghost app. It's just a
Mhm.
recorder. The problem is there's so many other apps running on the phone in the background that they make little vibrations, little noises, little stuff sometimes you don't even hear, and it could corrupt the actual recording. That's why I don't like it. Because I've seen it do that. But it's a recorder. I mean, it'll work, but I prefer the little recorders.
I've gotten EVPs like off of like my camera phone, like on the
Mm,
camera doing the video, and
Yeah.
also off of other cameras as well. Um, but like you can use pretty much any recorder.
yeah.
I mean you got the most sophisticated one like a Tascam, a Zoom. But we like using the older, digital recorders just because it's not built to like eliminate all these sounds where you're trying to get the perfect sound, like for audio and music.
Not
You want to,
HD. Yeah.
yeah, you want to get it completely raw because you're like defeating the purpose if you're like, okay, like we want to clear this out and, make it a clearer, crisper sound.
Yeah. It's the new recorders, a lot of new recorders filter out all the white noise and the stuff like that to create an HD sound. And we don't know if that eliminates it, cuts it out. I just like the old recorder. I still have a little micro cassette one too. The problem with it is you need to use new tapes every time you use it, or else there's remnants from even if you erase it, so it could be contaminated. But it's not easy to find those tapes anymore.
And if you're lazy like me, you want to use your recorder that is voice activated, so you don't have to listen to the whole damn thing.
Exactly.
That's great. Yeah, something I found on my phone when I have my video on, and even the phone just sitting there on video, I'll tend to have better results in capturing EVPs than if I use the like the memo on there or just record plain audio.
Right.
And I couldn't figure out why that might be. And that's why I was wondering if, what your thoughts were and about using phones.
I mean, for straight recording like that, I don't think it's that bad. It's just I prefer to use the recorder, and I have so many. I have like at least 50 or 60 different types of of audio recorders.
Is that all?
I have a little collection.
Well, lately I've been using this my Olympus. I can't remember the model, and it's not an expensive model. And I've been getting some Class A EVPs off that recently. But if you don't want to spend a couple $1,000s on a DR60, I would go with like a Sony, the SD25. I'll always get good EVPs off of that. And they got the sister version, the SD10, the Sony SD10. And I've gotten EVPs off that one too. And the cool thing about it, it has voice activation, so you can be lazy like me.
The voice activation is good, definitely.
So, David, you're originally from Pennsylvania?
Yeah, I was born outside of Philadelphia, and then when I was about 11, I moved to Dallas. And,
Okay.
And
what got you to crazy Key West?
I kind of feel like I was led here. And it's interesting because I had a kindergarten teacher who used to tell us about her ghost. And so I was hooked on the paranormal at a very early age. And hers was a Native American spirit that used to live behind her walls and do strange things. But as a kid, I looked so forward to going to kindergarten. And I remember sitting on the floor, and the first thing we'd do is hear the updates on what the ghost had done. And she showed us a photo of the ghost on the last day of class. And I thought it was really incredible. And then my great aunt, we called her Aggie, and there was a family hotel in Germantown, Pennsylvania. And there were supposed to be several ghosts there, and one of them was supposed to be my great grandfather. But we'd hear these cool stories from Aggie about how, one of the long-term residents there was a writer, and she heard the typewriter going all night. And when she saw him the next morning, she said, "Boy, you sure were on fire last night. You must have written the entire novel." And he said, "Oh, no, I wasn't here last night. I was staying with a friend down in the city." And she had so many cool stories like that. And then I remember one day, right out in the driveway, I felt the urge to turn around. I don't know why. I don't remember why, but I remember turning around and looking up at the window on the room that my great grandfather was supposed to haunt. And that room was closed off. Nobody went in there. And I remember seeing him standing in the window, looking down at me.
Oh, wow.
And so that was the first time that I actually saw a ghost. And so they were always a part of my life from then. And I never imagined I'd be in the paranormal field. I went to college for hospitality management. I used to manage cruise ships, but I saw a ghost tour in Scotland. And when I went on this ghost tour in Scotland, ghost tours weren't a thing. In America, I don't think any existed yet. There might have been one or two. And they took us around, and this tour guide was so brilliant. He'd slam into the door of the church and dislocate his shoulder intentionally to tell part of a story. They took us to the underground vaults, and where they say thousands of people died because architecture would only allow you to build so tall. So you had to start going down, and 6 levels down, there's some great fire, and ended up heating up everything below and pretty much making all the vaults giant ovens. And you could feel the energy in those places. And I looked around, and on our tour, there were 30 people, and it was freezing out. It was St. Patrick's Day. And then they had 4 tours that night. And then we ran into 3 other companies doing tours. And, they were charging £10 a piece. And I'm thinking, okay, wait a minute. And I'm like, damn, these people are making good money telling ghost stories. I'm like, what am I doing managing cruise ships? Because cruise ships actually were kind of corporate. You dealt with a lot of politics and things like that. I was pretty young. Sure. I was a GM when I was 23. So when I was about 26, I said, that's it. I'm quitting the corporate world and I'm going to go start a ghost tour. And the place that I heard was very haunted was Charleston. So quit my job. I'm driving to Charleston with all my worldly possessions in the car. And I get to Charleston and I start walking around. I see a sign for a ghost tour. And I'm like, oh God. You don't move in on someone else's tour. At least that was my ethics. And it's funny because the people in Charleston came and started one in Key West later. But
Oh wow, that's funny.
But I mean, it worked out so well because I go
bulldog
back to
tours.
my parents' house in Fort Lauderdale, and I'm like, great, what the hell am I going to do with my life? And my friend who happened to be in Key West, he was the GM. I'm sorry, he was the operations manager at the Chart Room Hotel. I'm sorry, that's the bar at the Pier House Hotel. You see where my mind is. So he had called my parents' house trying to find me on the cruise ship, or how to get a hold of me on the cruise ship, because it was pre-cell phones. And my dad says, he's right here. And I told my friend Greg, I said, yeah, I don't really know what I'm going to do. I quit my job. I was going to start a ghost tour, but they've already got one in Charleston. I have no clue what I'm doing with my life. And he said, come to Key West. It's the second oldest city in Florida. I'm sure they've got some ghosts here. You can sleep on my kitchen floor. So I'm like, great. And hopped in my 84 Ford Thunderbird, drove down to the Keys. The first place that he took me was the cemetery. And it wasn't locked at night then. We get there and it's wide open, and we start walking in, and it was my first experience with an above ground cemetery. And you could feel the energy there. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be a perfect town for this. And we're in the dead center of that cemetery. And out of one of the graves, we see something start moving. And then we hear, and I tell you, you've never seen two adult men turn and run so quick. I mean, we're running and we're laughing, and we get out of there and we're like, what the hell was that? And we realized it was a homeless person who was just resting in there, and we had disturbed them. But that was my introduction to Key West. And it was really interesting because now Key West is known as a very haunted destination. At that time, nobody was talking about the ghosts there. And it took me almost 2 weeks to even find a single ghost story. And I'm talking going around talking to people, talking to bartenders, tipping them extremely well, going to the library. I was ready to leave Key West because I found nothing. And I got lost, and I'm driving, and so I'm frustrated being lost. And then somebody in my passenger seat said, go back to the library. And I turned to them. I go, I don't know where the library is. And there's nobody there, but I saw their sleeve. Like I saw a little bit of a sleeve. And I look up, there's a sign that says library parking only. So I pull in. I'd been to the library several times. Couldn't find anything. This time I go in and I go back to the Florida History Room, and the historian Tom Hambright was there. And so Tom asked, hey, can I help you? And I said, I'm looking for a book on the ghosts of Key West. And Tom says, oh, there are none. I said, okay, thank you. And I turned around to leave. I was halfway out that door, and he said, hang on a minute. We don't have any books, but we got ghosts. So I turn around. In Key West, they have this big walk-in vault in the library, and that preserves all of our history, protects it from hurricanes and from fires. And the general public isn't allowed in there, so I mean, it's a real vault. It's closed off. So I hadn't seen that the previous times I'd been there. Without Tom there, I wouldn't have known about it. He walks into that vault, and he comes out about 2 minutes later, and he had this big old folder that was full of newspaper clippings from the past 50 years or so, all about ghosts. It was a folder dedicated to
wow.
Key West. And I mean, that changed my life. Think about that. Those couple of seconds for him, for him to say, wait, but we've got ghosts, absolutely changed my life, changed the trajectory. I don't know what I'd be doing now. And I started plotting out where the different haunted houses were. And then I went knocking on doors. And Key West was really cool then, because now so many of the places sell every year or two, to the highest bidder. They've all gone corporate.
Mhm.
I got there at a time when these people had owned these bed and breakfasts for like 20 years, 30 years, and
Right.
they had 20 or 30 years worth of stories.
Hmm.
So I was able to collect these oral histories and interview them about the ghosts. And I think I captured a really unique time in the island's history. And I think the ghosts appreciated it. I mean, it's almost like they were ready to have their stories told. Because,
Right.
there was still a time when you talk about ghosts and people would think you're a little crazy. If somebody saw a ghost, they had to think very hard whether or not they wanted anybody to know. A lot of those newspaper reports, people asked for their names to, to be kept private. But that's, first I went to the Marrero guest mansion where there's a ghost named Enriqueta Marrero, who I believe Bill is familiar with.
Just a little.
But when I went to Enriqueta's house, and this was my first real paranormal encounter in Key West, I was talking to James Remus, who was the owner, and he had brought me into the back room, and he's telling me stories, and I'm writing them down, writing them down in my little notebook. And then this pillow starts pushing against my back from the couch. And I thought it was a big pillow. It just fell over.
Mhm.
And I move it back, and then it hits me again. And this happens like a dozen times. And I had that thing propped where there's no way it's going to fall over again. And it pushes right up against me. And he sees it happening. And he says, "What's going on over there?" I said, "I keep getting pushed." He goes, "Yeah, she's probably done with you asking all these questions about her." And then there was this lamp. It was like one of the halogen lamps, the ones with pointing straight up.
Mm.
The bulb in it exploded.
Wow.
I mean, I'm talking pop, boom. And I look over at that, and he looks at me. He goes, "Yeah, she's definitely ready for you to go." And so that was my first welcome. I left there, knocked on the door of the artist house. This guy, Daryl Meyer, opened the door, and I said, "Hey, I've got a weird thing to tell you. I'm working on something called a ghost tour, and I wanted to talk to you about your ghost." And Daryl says, and I was looking for Ann Otto. There wasn't even anything about Robert the Doll in those files. And
Oh, wow.
I said, he said, "Oh, you want to hear about Robert the Doll?" And I said, "No, no, no. I'm doing a ghost tour." And I want to hear about the ghost of Ann Otto. He goes, "Oh, no, no, no. You want to hear about Robert the Doll." And I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, so maybe this guy has some weird doll thing that he wants to talk about. Okay, whatever. And then he starts telling me the story, and I'm like, I mean, I think this is insane. And then he asked me if I'd like to see the room where Robert used to live. And as soon as he said that, the phone flew off the hook. I look over, and he says, "Yeah, Robert's ready for you." And then he goes up the stairs. I go to follow him. The bookcase opens up and blocks me. And he says, "Oh, just close it. He's just playing with you." And then we go up into the attic, and I feel very privileged because the attic was still furnished with Robert's little chairs and tables, and it was set up like Gene Otto had had it for Robert. And there's been a dozen owners since then, so none of that was preserved. But I stepped in there, and I can still picture it and how it looked and how it felt. And the attics will have a certain feel to them. The
Mhm.
energy
Yeah.
changed, and this heat energy that came over the place. I knew I was going to be physically sick if I didn't get out of there.
Mm.
And I was like, "Whoa, there's something to this." So I asked him. I said, "Hey, how do I see this doll?" And he said, "Well, he's in a museum, but he's not on display. So you're going to have to call them up in advance to arrange to see him. And that's what I did. But when it's funny because when I called, the first two people I spoke to didn't want to show me Robert. They said, "Oh, no. You'll have to call back when somebody else is here." And I got the sense that they didn't want to deal with him, that they were not frightened, but that they didn't want to mess with him. And then the curator, Stacy Rousseau, she agreed to meet me. And the museum, it was a very different museum then. Leaky roofs, open air. It had this very interesting vibe to it. And nobody really went there. There was nothing that was a real draw if you weren't big into Civil War, because because the structure of the fort is a Civil War. So I go in, I'm the only one there. Stacy comes out of this back room and she's holding Robert in his chair and she's talking to him. And she's like, "Hey, Robert, this is David. He's starting something called a ghost tour and he wants to take some photographs of you." And I'm looking at Stacy talking to the doll and I'm like, wow, this is really crazy. Like, people are really weird in Key West. But she was so nice and she set him down and left me alone. So I'm alone in this giant Civil War fort, me and this doll. Robert did not look haunted. He looked strange because he's an old doll and he's the size of a small child.
Right.
But I took a few photographs and then I said, "Oh, I want to get one without his hat on," because he had a different sailor hat than he has now. It was down, it covered his eyes some. It was pretty creepy looking. So I go and I touched the brim of his hat and I lifted it off his head. Boom, that doll came alive. The energy in the room changed. It had the same energy that the attic room at the artist house did when it changed. I could feel that I was not alone. His eyes changed. You could see life behind him. And I thought, oh my God, let me get a photo of this. This is going to be incredible. And I tried taking the photo and the camera didn't work. And I tried 3 pictures, doesn't take the pictures. I turn, I'm looking at it to see if there's some weird settings on it. Boom, boom, boom. It takes the pictures of my face. I'm like, okay, it's working. I turn it back around, go to take the picture. It doesn't work. And I heard a child giggle. And then the life left Robert's eyes. And I was alone in the room again. And that was the moment where I said, oh my God, I got to find out what's making this doll tick. And it started a 30-year journey in May. May of this year, it'll be 30 years.
And look what you got yourself into, right?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And it's good because I don't think people would have ever known about Robert otherwise. I started sending people on my tour. I said, call the museum, call the museum, call the museum. Enough people started calling the museum that they put him out in a display with some of the other Key West characters. Because you have to realize, at that time, if a museum put something haunted in there, most of the people in that field, they didn't really believe in the paranormal. They kind of looked down on it. So Robert wasn't something that they really wanted as part of their collection.
Right.
But then, people started going up there, and having an attraction at that museum was great for the organization. And then I was able to get the travel. I think Travel Channel was one of the first ones to come down. There's actually a show called Strange Universe, which I think was a UPN show. And I got them to come down and do something on Robert. But then Travel Channel, which was huge. And then word started going around. And more people started coming. And of course, this led to Ozzy Osbourne, Jack and Ozzy coming down.
Yeah.
Right.
So and now you've had some pretty big names come and see Robert the doll, and so he's become internationally known as the world's most haunted doll, which is pretty cool. And I feel honored that I've been able to be along on that journey.
I even heard that the Haunted Files might be involved in something. I don't know. I don't know. I think I heard about something like that.
That's what I hear too.
That could be like a nice little surprise for people.
I hear
heard
that
about
could be happening very soon, right?
I believe so.
Do you think do you think there might be these 3 faces? I'm sorry, these 4?
Anything's possible, you know?
I think I heard something about that.
Since we're on the subject of the Haunted Files, we got to pay some bills. So we're going to take a nice little break and we'll be right back. Bam.
What's up? Mike and Eric from the Haunted Files here, and we got these pieces of paranormal equipment in our hand. Why is that?
Because we want to give a big shout out to the Ghost Hunter store, our sponsor. And you might see some of this equipment on your favorite ghost hunting shows. Is that right, Mike?
That's right, especially the Haunted Files on ParaFlixx.
And we're going to give you a special code for a discount on these devices.
That's right. So if you go to the Ghost Hunter store, you go to the website, when you check out, if you enter the code Ghost Gone Wild,
Not Girls Gone Wild.
that's right, you get a discount on your purchase. So check them out. They're your one-stop shop for everything paranormal.
What's up, everybody? I'm Eric, and this is Mike from the Haunted Files. And Mike, we got something special to tell everyone, right?
We do. We have an amazing product here. This is from Haunted Happy Hour, where they make spirit-infused coffee. And what's cool about this product right here is it's the Haunted Files edition. It's a Dark Isles brew.
Yep, and it's got a blend of Irish cream, pistachio, and dark rum. A perfect blend to awaken your dark side, right, Mike?
Hell yeah, it is. And if you're feeling sluggish or you are ready to investigate all night, this is for you, man. And it is amazing tasting. And not only that, but what did ParaFlixx do for us and for the fans?
Well, you're going to get a special discount code that's on the package, and you're going to be able to get 3 months for free ParaFlixx. And who can they watch, Mike?
They can watch us and all the other amazing investigators on the ParaFlixx platform. So get yours today and make sure you check out ParaFlixx and the Haunted Files.
And if you're feeling dead inside, get caffeinated with Haunted Happy Hour.
Are you ready to explore the unknown?
Eventually.
Brace yourself for a journey into the supernatural. ParaFlixx Paranormal Plus, your gateway to the paranormal, all-in-one streaming service. Dare to explore, dare to believe, dare to stream alone.
It does not want us here.
Sign up now and embark on a supernatural adventure like never before. ParaFlixx Paranormal Plus, the universal home of paranormal.
So we got to fix that. We just got our own like StreamYard platform, so we're working out the kinks here. But I do want to let everyone know that we just started season 4 of the Haunted Files, and we just debuted episode 1. The USS North Carolina, the battleship. So check it out if you haven't seen it. And we'll be airing episode 2, and that's the Ann Stevens house in Casadega, Florida. And that is going to be premiering on, I gotta look at my calendar, so I'm bad with dates, on the 27th. So I got a trailer for that, and I'll share that with everyone. Here we go.
Welcome to the Haunted Files.
And tonight we are investigating the Ann Stevens house. You ready to do this?
I am. Let's do it.
We're going to have the pleasure of investigating the Ann Stevens bed and breakfast. Super haunted. It goes back to the early 1900s. And the interesting fact is that this place is located in a spiritual camp.
The one misconception that drives me the most crazy is that we are a community of witches.
For more than 125 years, the quiet community of Casadega has been somewhat of a mystery to many Central Floridians, and people have lots of other misconceptions about it too.
We worship the devil. There's an evilness about us. As spiritualists, we don't even believe in the devil.
But for those in the know, Casadega is a gateway to the great unknown.
After we reopened this as a bed and breakfast, some of our guests began having experiences. Some were tucked in. One morning, their bed had been made. Others had seen a man in a Civil War uniform. And we learned that this person had been Ann Stevens' gardener.
As darkness settles in over this quiet little town, you can feel the shift in the energy. With our equipment in hand, we head in, prepared to document whatever we may encounter.
You get close to that box again? Please? Just let us know you're here.
Awesome. Get out. Edward.
I swear I'm looking across the hallway in the other room, and I feel like someone's peeping out like a shadow.
I just got the chills.
Yeah, I felt that right there.
As soon as I passed the threshold.
He said devil, and we went to the devil's chair.
In 900 feet, the destination is on your left, the Devil's Chair.
In Casadega, Florida, sits the Devil's Chair, a stone seat said to summon the devil himself. Legends say that at midnight he'll speak to you. Leave a beer, and by morning it's gone. A chilling mystery, and one of Florida's darkest urban legends.
What does the devil chair mean to you?
Daddy.
So it was weird. It's like before we filmed our investigation, we went to the devil's chair to check it out. And we were doing the Delco session, and we were picking up things related to us being there. It was sort of odd.
That devil's chair, I don't know. I had an experience there, and I don't know if it was, one of those coincidences or whatever. I was on my way to St. Augustine. I had stopped there. I have this in my book. I was on the way up there, and I stopped there, before going up to St. Augustine for a week for vacation. I was perfectly fine. I went in, sat in a chair, got a picture, and on the way up to St. Augustine, got deathly sick, and I was sick the entire week I was up there. Came home still sick. Went to the urgent care twice up in St. Augustine, and they couldn't find anything wrong with me. Came back, had to go get cleansed and stuff, and then it went away. And I don't know. I don't know if it was a coincidence, but it was real weird. All I did was sit in that chair, and there was a little doll that was hunched over in the chair, and I took it and I straightened it out. And I was getting yelled at by somebody with me going, "Why would you touch that doll?" See,
Did you drink
I would
there?
Yeah,
I
these are
would
the
have
dumb
gone to the
things we
fountain
do.
of youth and like bathe myself in that nasty water.
It was I don't know what it was, but the only time I sat in that chair, and it didn't go well.
Well, the cool thing about that Ann Stevens house is like there's nothing bad there. It's just good memories. We get a spirit of a little girl named Marjorie. Her dad, I was the architect of that house. So she used to hang out there with Ann Stevens when she was a little girl, but Marjorie lived till like she was in her 90s. So now she comes back as a little girl, and we get her all the time there. And the two owners that live there, they're psychic mediums, and they're very protective over Marjorie. But I don't know. It's a really cool place. And then on top of that, it's in Casadega. if people don't know that, what Casadega is, it's a spiritualist camp. I mean, it's a town of psychic mediums, tarot card readers. They have like festivals there on spiritualism. They have a haunted museum. Very cool place.
They call it the psychic capital of the world just because it's a small town, and the amount of psychics living in that town override the whole town. It's so they consider it the capital of the psychic capital of the world.
Yeah, and they said that the lake there is like a portal. So, oh, it was cool. We were filming a TV show for Univision there a few years back at the Ann Stevens house, and they said that there's like a portal in their backyard, and they have like, like for Halloween. I mean, not Halloween, for Christmas. The big plastic old school reindeers that light up that you put in your front lawn. Well, they had something that was like a dog, and they were calling it the REM dog because it would go off when it felt like static, like on the REM pod.
Right.
So every now and then, sometimes on command, this big dog would like light up in the backyard. It was really cool.
I got a question, David. Did you ever have a chance to take Robert and bring him back to the artist house?
No.
No?
No.
I think that would be kind of cool.
No, I mean, it would be really cool. But, I take care of the spirits inside of Robert, and, I've uncovered his history and all that. But so that's why I'm a doll tender. But the museum owns the artifact of Robert. And, their main responsibility is making sure the artifact is preserved. So,
very delicate now, right?
Yeah. So as cool as things like that would be, they're just not good for preserving Robert for future generations.
Right.
So, and it's interesting, when Robert and I were grand marshals of the Fantasy Fest parade, that was one of the things, and we wanted Robert to be there, but of course the actual Robert can't be there. So I handcrafted a replica of Robert, and we were going to do a fun media piece where I'd go in with the double and stand in front of Robert's case and invite one of the spirits of Robert in, because I wanted to invite the little girl who I call Abby, because the angry nanny, her name was Emmeline Abbott, and I discovered that she had lost a child, but we don't know the child's name, so I call her Abby as an Abbott, and I took the doll here, and we were filming it, and I was very sincere in talking to Abby and inviting her to come into this doll to come on the parade. And what surprised me, something I wasn't expecting at all, is this doll got heavier. When I did it got heavier. I felt something physically come into this doll, and I didn't know what to think would happen. I mean, it was beautiful. I was really pleased that she was actually going to come to the parade with me. But there was a guy standing there, because I'm thinking nobody with me is going to believe me if I say, oh, the doll just got heavier.
Right.
And this person was standing there looking at Robert and didn't really know Robert's story or anything. And he said, what's going on? I said, would you like to hold her? He said, sure. And he held her, and he became very emotional. And then he let out all this childhood trauma. I mean, it got to where he was crying, and he said, I don't understand what's happening, but this is incredible.
Wow.
And then since then, a series of interesting things happened that where I have no doubt that Abby's spirit is there. And, so I'll take this doll. I'll take this one with me, because I think the spirits need to be nurtured. And that's what I always tried to do when we're doing tours at night with Robert the doll. As I'm setting up, I'll teach Robert to count in different languages. I'll read books of Bahamian history that tie in to when Emmeline Abbott was around, and do things true, because I look at the spirits, and if there's a little girl there, she doesn't want the same people coming in every day and doing the same thing and saying the same thing and taking you need something that mixes things up. So So I'll take her around with me. And it's an interesting study as well, because I try to step into the mind of Gene Otto to really understand what was going on with him and Robert the doll. And I've been
Yeah.
doing that for 30 years, trying to really view Robert through the eyes of the people who were around him, because it's easy to tell a story and it's easy to kind of make people into caricatures of what the true person is. And by studying all these details of them and going through the same motions, it does bring this greater understanding. So that's been it's been what, almost, well, it's been over a year.
I remember you told me that you had like a new discovery related to Robert the doll, like where the materials actually came from. Did you tell me it was like from a forest in Germany?
Yeah. Yeah, it was really interesting, and that tied in with this as well. But there was someone who identified Robert as an elemental spirit. And the way that they did it, they experienced this spirit of Robert that I had experienced and never told anybody about. Just because it sounded so crazy. And when someone had that shared experience, I'm like, whoa. And they described the sound it made. They described what it looked like, its behaviors. And I said, whoa, whoa, whoa. Do you think that's the little girl? And she just looks grotesque because she's, over 100 years old. She said, oh, no, no, it's an earth elemental. And I like to think I'm Mr. Ghost Guy, but, I know about elementals, but I didn't know much about them. So I looked them up, and they're the spirits that are attached to earth, wind, water, and fire. But they were first written about by Paracelsus in the Black Forest of Germany. And he was like an alchemist or a scientist. And when I saw that it was in Germany in the Black Forest, I'm like, whoa, Robert the doll's from Germany. An earth elemental would be, made of trees. And Robert the doll is stuffed with excelsior, which is this tightly spun wood wool. And I looked up to see where Steiff would have sourced it. And they sourced from local forests. And so they would have sourced wood wool from the Black Forest in Germany, where elementals were first written about, where Grimm's fairy tales all take place.
Yeah.
And it kind of brought things full circle. I went to Germany to explore all of the German folklore. Spirits over there, they're very real. These fairy tales, they're not the fake tales that we make them out to be.
Right.
If people look up kobolds, one is Robert's spirits, I'm now convinced is a kobold, which is a type of elemental. And but then you look back, and before everybody on YouTube got a hold of Robert, before people started demonizing him, Robert was not this terror. Robert was the enchanted doll.
Oh, yeah.
And so he's from this enchanted forest. He's the enchanted doll, and that's always what he was. And what does an enchanted doll do? Well, they're not good, they're not bad. And I think with the elementals,
mischievous.
There's
right.
helpful but mischievous, and if you screw them over, you're done. But darkness and light, or there's not necessarily good and evil. Everything requires the opposite to exist. And I think when you approach Robert, really what he does is, he'll take you by the hand and he'll lead you into the forest and take you on a journey. And it's going to be the journey that you need, whether you want it or not.
I'll be picking up mushrooms along the way that forest trail. Journey.
That's not a bad way to do it. And it's interesting because, with there's some German dolls like the Alderon dolls, and these different things, they say that they were actually psychedelics involved. And so with some of these root dolls, people would take these psychedelics and then commune with the spirits. And I think there's definitely something to that.
Well, I'm no scientist or anything like that, but I forget where I was listening, who I was listening to, but they were talking about there's a type of psychedelic that you could take that will activate a certain part of your brain for you to be in that different type of like dimension. I forgot the name of that, but
Salvia was one that
maybe that's what it
the
was.
shamans used to use, and a lot of people see the woman in white when they do that, and she's like the lady of the universe. There are some interesting things out there, and and there are drugs where they're not pleasant. They're not enjoyable, but they definitely take you to a very real world that's out there, and it's interesting seeing what is surrounding us and what we have blinders up to.
And you got that culture in Key West, the Santeria and Voodoo there as well, right?
Yeah. And Santeria is very different. Santeria came over with the slaves, and it's very much an African religion. But then you had the slave owners who didn't want them having their own religion, and they beat them and say, nope, you got to be a Christian like me. And so what they did is they started syncretizing their orishas with the Catholic saints. So like you'd have Yemaya,
like the one behind you.
Yeah, and that's a Santa Barbara there. But I think what they did, I think they took a Yemaya and just put a Santa Barbara label on her. But like Yemaya, she was associated with the sea, and she dressed in blue. And so with her, they put her with Mary, and then you had Shango, and Shango was associated with lightning or fire and was all dressed in red, and they syncretized Shango with Santa Barbara. And Santa Barbara, she's the patron saint of firefighters because, fire and explosions and safety from that. So that's how the slave owners were like, oh, look, they're worshiping the saints. They're little, it's Santeria. They called them Santeros. And then through time, like the Catholicism has kind of blended with the African religions, but it's one of the most powerful religions I've seen. It's helped me on several occasions, and I'm very respectful of it. I used to think I knew a lot about it because I had experienced things with it, and I realized that my understanding of it is very minimal, and I'm very humbled by it. And the way that
how did you use it to help you?
Yeah, it's saved my life on at least 2 occasions. So
yeah, I remember talking to you about that.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where I think it's misunderstood because it's like anything. There's a good side and a bad side to it. I've dealt with a bunch of residential cases here that involve Santeria, and a lot of people look down on it because even on what you would say the good side of it, some of them still sacrifice animals with it. So people look at it as all voodoo, The cases I dealt with all were people doing stupid things with it, things buried in their yards, and they're doing all kinds. If you're doing it for bad, if you're doing it to harm somebody, it's
bad intentions.
It's every religion has it on both sides,
Yeah. And it is interesting. You brought up the animal sacrifice, and that is something where people assume if there's an animal sacrifice, it's got to be the devil involved, unless of course it's the sacrifice of the cow that they're eating in the hamburger that day. Or
sometimes it's the cleansing, right?
Yeah,
cleanse evil out. The bloodletting for them is like for certain things, it's a cleansing to let the darkness get rid of the darkness.
Yeah.
And that's like a normal thing. They probably think what we do is probably be very evil looking. I don't know.
I mean,
sage.
Is someone using a rooster in a ceremony worse than what the Catholic priests are doing to the little boys?
Yeah.
Which one is closer to the devil?
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely. And You hear a lot about that.
Yeah.
I wasn't raised Catholic, thank goodness. I was raised Episcopalian.
Ah,
Episcopal.
I was raised Catholic, and the priest who confirmed me was one of the first ones to go down for molesting a lot of people at my church.
Oh,
So
Really?
wow.
that's why
wild.
that's why I'm more than happy to take digs at the Catholic Church.
Yeah. Well, you have a
I am
right.
Catholic. I've never experienced that. I don't know. I would even joke about it a little bit. I said, I don't know. I grew up, I did communion, confirmation. I was an altar boy. I said, nobody came near me. I don't know if that was good or bad.
Well,
I never, you know.
I had a good friend that he went to a Catholic all boys school, and what turned him was him getting beaten by the nuns while he was in school.
Oh, I could tell you. So I went to Catholic school for a couple years, and yeah. But yeah, they were like that. Even in I got slapped by a nun. Well, I won't tell that story on here because it's not good. But yeah, they were a little bit like that. But I mean, for me, it was different. I mean, when I was young and I grew up in this, one of the priests at the church I was in when I was young was the one who started teaching me about demonology. So it was
Oh,
I
wow.
saw a completely different side, than the things
Yeah.
you hear.
Interesting. I know there's a haunted Episcopal church in Key West, right, David?
Yeah, St. Paul's Episcopal Church. Um, it's a really interesting church too, and that's one of the ones where they ended up digging up a lot of the people who were buried in their cemetery so they could build the bigger church because they've been destroyed by hurricanes and by fires and things like that. And I think it's the third church on the property. And we used to go there when I started the first tours and we were doing the tours downtown. I knew when we were approaching that as soon as we got there, the spirits knew we were there. And you'd see everything start swirling in this churchyard just behind the church. And we'd go back behind the gates, and there was an old sea captain's grave right up against the church. And I mean, there's just like that much room between them. And that's the only reason that grave was spared. And it's a
Right.
guy who's actually descended, or he's related in some way to Thomas Jefferson. So it's a pretty
Oh,
cool
interesting.
story. But we would stand there, and you could tell he did not like us there. And one night I hit somebody, and look, they weren't into spirits at all. They weren't psychic, they weren't anything. And we're standing there, and they go, "Whoa, they just told me to tell you to get the hell out of here and don't come back again or else." Went back the next night. I'm holding my lantern up on the grave, hand against the wall. Somebody says, "Look out." This albino scorpion that must have been at least a foot long, maybe longer. It came running up the wall towards me. It was about to nail my arm. And then we went back another night after that. Actually, I'm sorry. This next one was middle of the day. It was a cruise ship tour. And I went in there and I was talking about it. And something came up and grabbed me by the neck. And it went right up to my ear. And in no uncertain terms, it told me to get out. And that was the first time I had something actually go straight into my ear that clearly while grabbing me. And I just kind of I froze. I froze for a minute and forgot where I was in the story. I just sat there for a second trying to think what to do. And I told everybody, I'm like, let's go to the next stop. And people kind of looked and they're like, what's going on? I'm like, let's go. And I got everybody out and I made sure that they left first. And I didn't go back in there for a little bit. And then it was probably about a week later that the church called me up and they said, hey, we're going to have to ask for our key back, because they'd given me a key to go into the churchyard with the groups. And I said, is everything okay? They said, we just need the key back, please. So I don't know what happened on their end, but it was definitely something that was stirred up, and there continues to be a lot of activity. Right across from that is one of the old Baptist churches that burned and has a lot of activity. It's a theater now. That whole street just has a lot of activity.
Yeah. I mean, I remember being a kid, like even going into Key West, just like when you get in there, especially at night and you're driving around, that vibe is just oozing all over the place. You definitely sense it.
Shadow people everywhere.
No, that wouldn't surprise me at all. Or a sense of being watched,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I have a question I always wanted to ask you. I always forget. People have sent stuff or brought stuff to the museum down there, things they didn't want that they thought were haunted, things like that. Has anybody ever brought back one of the replicas of Robert or complained? I did they?
They send them back a lot, and the museum, when they mail them out or anything, they include something saying, mini Roberts are not returnable.
Oh, really?
Really?
I mean, they say that, but there are people who will mail them back anyway and say, hey, thanks for this, but I'm sending it back. And I think it's interesting because nowadays people look at Robert's picture online and think they're going to be cursed and that they need to apologize.
Yeah.
And, I don't believe that that's the case. But that's another one of the legends that will never die. And I mean, people are very much afraid of Robert. There's more people that are terrified of Robert that don't want to go to the museum, that don't want to see him. And, and that's not what Robert is at all. It's not like Robert is out there cursing people at random.
Right.
Most people who go to see him end up saying, oh, look at that. I love Robert. When we get children with autism who go up there, they're never afraid. They'll look and they'll see the innocent side of Robert. So I think Robert's almost a mirror for what people see. And I think it's interesting that he's, like I said earlier, like he's been demonized.
Right.
When really that's not at all what he is.
Well, it's funny because I don't know if you remember. Now, I've had mine for I don't know how many years, a long time, and it was 23 because what you were saying. First of all, people are frightened of them. I have them at my table at every event I do, and people sometimes won't even come up to the table because they won't go near him. But it was in 23 or at MegaCon. And I remember posting a video. I took a video of the whole setup of everything, and I posted it on Facebook. And I remember you commenting, going, "Oh, nice setup." And then I went up to my Robert, and I took a picture, and I tried to post it. I was trying to tell you, look who made the trip. I could not post that picture. I could take a picture of anything else there, but any picture I took of him, it would not let me post it on Facebook. Even wound up taking that into the lecture like a half hour later and showing them, what happened. And we could not post any photos of Robert. It was the strangest thing.
Yeah. And that fits his profile perfectly. When you look at the kobolds, they are helpful, but they're pranksters. And if you cross them, you've got trouble. But that fits in with the prankster side of things. And these kobolds, they were spirits. Sometimes they lived in mines, and that's how cobalt got its name, because the miners thought they were going to hit, a nice score of silver, and then they'd get this other metal they're like, what's this? And it's like, oh, those damn kobolds. So cobalt was named, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've never had problems with them, but like I said earlier when we were talking before, I won't take him on the plane with me. I just can't do it. I don't know. He goes in the car, he goes everywhere, but I can't take him on the plane.
Yeah.
And I have a good relationship with Robert.
Yeah. Just gotta do what you always do. Respect the paranormal.
Yeah.
Rule number one. But David, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, this is great. I'm just looking through all the comments now. I didn't see them earlier. It's great to see everybody on here. Greg Koss was down here a couple weeks ago. That was great. Hi, Greg. Hi, Barbara. Hi, everybody. Hi, Carol. Yeah, this has been excellent. So
yeah.
And Bill, thank you for being my host for tonight.
Absolutely. How can I turn
amazing
you down
job.
and turn David down? I can't, you know.
Right. And David, for the guests that are listening or watching, let them know like where they can find you. If you have anything upcoming, I know you got a bunch of books out there.
There's a bunch of
regarding
fun
Key
stuff.
West.
If people go to ghostkeywest.com, that's got all the different tours. And then phantompress.com, just like Phantom of the Opera, but phantompress.com. That's got all my books. That's got the Cal Key Channel Bridge Run. I'm going to do a Bum Farto seance at the firehouse on the anniversary of his death. He's the missing fire chief for anybody who's wondering about that name. But we're doing a lot of fun, cool stuff on social media. For the most part, I'm David L. Sloan. And if you come to Key West, I mean, there's so much great haunted stuff down here. And
Yeah, absolutely.
if you follow me through my different channels and stuff, I'll help point you in the right direction for what's out there.
I'll
And
see
he
you
might
soon.
even let you buy him a mojito if you go down there.
It's a possibility. It's a possibility.
Yes, I'll be seeing you soon.
Yeah, this is going to be exciting.
And Bill, tell the people where they can find you. I know you got MegaCon coming up.
Yeah, I have March 14th is the Sunrise Comic Con, and then March, I think it's 19th to the 22nd is MegaCon in Orlando, and then July 31st to August 2nd is the New Orleans Paracon. That's going to be great. It's easy for me. Just my name, BillSlevin.com, has everything. If you're looking to book me for anything, contact my manager, Asia. You could get her off of my website too. Yeah, that's about the easiest places.
Awesome. And then for people out there, by the way, thank you for people that are new that joined on the show, that were on the chat. Please don't forget to subscribe and like, and I hope you guys come back when we have another guest on here. And also, we have a little show called The Haunted Files streaming on ParaFlixx, and ParaFlixx is the Netflix of the paranormal. So if you love paranormal shows and things like that, they have a ton of it there, and we have a show on there now, and we just started season 4, and we're pretty much halfway through it, and you might see some surprises coming up in season 4. So stay tuned. All right, everyone.
All right.
Everyone have a good night. Peace.